Should Waves change to a subscription? So, Waves plugin owners were delighted to learn that their plugins would change to a subscription model and they would have to pay monthly to use them. But they could keep their old paid-for plugins. They just wouldn't be updated anymore. Updated, that is, by the Waves update plan, which any Waves user will know was a subscription in disguise. No, Waves users are not happy, and they stood up and shouted that from the rooftops. So Waves caves. That rhymes. And Door users can now buy Waves plugins again.
Update March 30th, 2023. Updates for Perpetual plugins and bundles are available. We would like to update you that effective immediately. You can once again renew your Waves update plan in order to update Perpetual plugin and bundle licenses. This option will remain in place going forward. In addition, we are working to bring back the option to purchase new Perpetual licenses for plugins and bundles. This option will exist side by side with the new Waves Creative Access subscriptions.
And pay for updates anytime their Door is updated and their old plugins don't work. And yes, this is a thing. My Waves plugins that worked fine on Pro Tools 22.7 crash any later version. But there are economics involved here, both for users and plugin developers. Users want great plugins. Developers want to make great plugins, of course, but they also want to make money and actually pay their employees. And, of course, the shareholders who invested and made the business possible in the first place. So let's take a look at the outright sales model. Here's an example. I have a mailing list, 100% opt-in and one-click opt-out. And I bought a bulk emailing software somewhere around 2010. I don't use it now because I have something better, but it still does work. So I paid something like $50, $60 for this software, and the company has received nothing from me ever since. This is good for me, of course, but is it good for the company? If I've used this software twice a month for over 10 years, I can say that I've had exceedingly good value from it. But the company, did they receive appropriate recompense for their efforts? Well, you could compare this with hardware. I bought a washing machine in 2007, and it died earlier this year, RIP. So I had 16 years of use out of it. The manufacturer and retailer only ever expected to be paid once, but they knew that eventually I'd be back for a replacement. Washing machines wear out. Software, however, doesn't wear out. The computer you run it on may wear out, and if there are dependencies, they may break. But the software itself can live on forever, as long as its bits stay intact, which they will if you keep backups. But what if software could wear out? So you buy a software thinking you can run it forever, but at some point it does indeed wear out and you need a replacement. This is a business model. Limited life software. Software developers don't talk about this, and they'd like you to think that you can use their software forever. But in practice, you'll find that you can't. Okay, some of this is fair. Most software developers upgrade their software with new features from time to time. Many users will want those new features and they will be happy to pay for them. Some users won't want those new features, but they live in an ecosystem where they need file format compatibility, so they will, reluctantly, upgrade. Then probably find that the new features are quite nice after all. I think this is fair. Something new and better is on offer, we want it, and we pay for it. It's certainly possible to say that some upgrades are little more than a redesigned interface and hardly anything has changed underneath. Developers that do this, however, will find their users sluggish rather than eager to jump on the next new upgrade. I'm not going to name names, but please feel free to do so in the comments. But upgrades, this is mostly fair. But there's more to it than new features and attractive new interfaces. Taking the Apple ecosystem as an example. Apple changed their processors in 1994, from Motorola to the PowerPC. Then they changed to Intel in 2006. Then they changed again to Apple Silicon in 2020. And of course there were other changes in between, such as that from OS 9 to OS 10, which was a big change. So what about the software developers who have to keep up with this? Should they update their software for free? I said update there, not upgrade. So no new features other than compatibility and bug fixes. Yes, some software developers do, and they absorb the cost. But other developers see this as an opportunity to extract more money from their users. There's a saying, squeeze the orange until the pips squeak. The trick is to squeeze the user until their pips almost squeak, but not quite. Clearly, Waves overstepped this target. So, the paid-for update. Well, it would be nice to get free updates when they're necessary, and we appreciate it when we do. But someone is paying for this. It's the software developer in the first place who has to pay people to rewrite their code, and ultimately it's us, because that developer could be using their wages costs to make wonderful new software to revolutionize our workflow or make shiny new sounds. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Apart from sunlight and fresh air, someone always pays. So, as much as we would like to be able to buy software and run it forever, one way or another, we are paying for a subscription. Multiple subscriptions. And to bring back my comparison with hardware, yes, you can buy a hardware compressor and keep it forever, but it will need servicing from time to time. You'll still be paying for parts and labour, and insurance, and air conditioning for your vintage SSL console that you keep switched on all the time. You're paying a subscription. So this brings me to my point A. Why not just be honest about it? If we're going to have to pay periodically anyway, why shouldn't software developers just offer subscriptions and that's that? Adobe, Avid, on a smaller scale Slate Digital, you pay your subscription and you get to use the software for as long as you keep paying. If you're a professional or a company, the money you make from using this software should easily cover the cost, to the point that the cost is trivial. In my opinion, this would be good, honest trading, much more so than the hidden subscriptions that in reality we've all been paying. So where's the problem in this? Well, with Waves, it's the sudden about turn, which they about turned again, so old-time users are pretty much back where they were before, and there is now a subscription option. But that's an outlier. The problem is that although I said that companies and professionals could easily afford the subscriptions, which is not an excuse to put the prices up, there are many, many users who are not companies or professionals. Oh, you thought I was going to say that they're amateurs. They wouldn't really matter, would they? They're just doing it for fun, and if they don't want to pay the subscription prices, they can find a cheaper hobby. No, these people are the aspiring professionals, aspiring musicians, aspiring producers, aspiring graphic artists, aspiring anything, really. People who are not making money now, but they'll be the professionals of the future, if someone doesn't pull up the drawbridge and keep them out of the castle. Let's go back to the olden days of music. You would love to aspire to become a producer, but you couldn't possibly afford the equipment necessary to make a recording of commercial release quality. Only very few people ever got the opportunity to work in a recording studio and climb the ladder from studio dog's body to T-boy, yes, they were nearly all boys, to assistant engineer to producer. Also the film industry, where an actual industry insider told me you had to be related to someone to get in. But then Fostex made the B16. Soundcraft made affordable mixing consoles. Okay, affordable in the sense that if you had a job and didn't spend your money on anything else, you could afford them. But the gates to the castle had opened. And now we have digital audio workstation software that anyone can afford. Anyone with a job. But clearly, software companies have now realised that they're not charging enough for their products. And with subscriptions, they can keep the cash flow flowing in month after month. And how many subscriptions would an aspiring producer need to challenge existing professionals with the quality of their work? How much will those subscriptions cost in the future? Doom and gloom. Fortunately, there's hope. And that hope is the individual developer. There are plugins that are developed by just one person. I can mention Steve Massey, Tony Frenzel of Klanghelm, Felt Instruments. If virtual instruments are your thing, I'm sure you'll be able to comment me some more examples. And of course the micro company developers with just a few people, compared to the Adobe or Avid army. These developers will keep the big guys honest. So this is my point B. The world is not short of plugin developers. They are currently mostly competing to have the best and most useful plugins, but we surely must be reaching some kind of saturation point, where there will be price competition. Let me move on to my point C, which is something else, almost entirely. Bundles. I don't know where this started. Maybe cable TV, but that wasn't such a thing in the UK, at least not in my perception. But the thing people would complain about is having to pay for a bundle when all they wanted were a couple of channels. It's the same now with streaming services. There is only one sport I'm ever interested in, but to watch that on Sky TV in the UK, I have to subscribe to 11 channels, 10 of which are absolutely wasted on me. I would happily pay an 11th of the cost, or even a 10th of the cost, to watch my one favourite sport. But the whole bundle? No thanks. I'll do without. The same can be said of plug-in bundle subscriptions. Suppose, for instance, that my favourite plug-in in the world is the Waves GEQ graphic equaliser. Well, I wouldn't say it's my favourite, but as a graphic equaliser, I can't fault it, and graphic EQ plugins are very thin on the ground. If I want it, and that's the only Waves plugin I want, I'd have to pay $25 a month for the subscription. OK, $24.99. What's 1 cent going to buy me? I suppose I should come up with a conclusion. Well, seeing as we effectively subscribe to software anyway, then maybe I can warm to the subscription model. But I want to subscribe to the plugins I want, not the ones I'm not going to use. And I want to see competition in the industry so I can pay an amount that balances the value to me with appropriate recompense to the developer. All of this raises more questions than answers. I've asked some of the questions. Maybe you can come up with some of the answers. In the comments. See you soon.